Hello, and welcome back to the second installment of the niche features series of the app. Today's edition, we're going to look at some technologies. I'm going to look at three technologies that are a little rarer in terms of how often they show up in a game of Twilight Imperium. So a lot of technologies are passive, meaning once you research them, you don't have to worry about playing them in the app. So for example, you don't have to worry about getting your extra command token in with neural motivators. The server will do that for you. But there are some technologies that require user interaction. And the first one I'd like to go over here is the second technology in the cybernetics deck, and it's transit diodes. So transit diodes reads, you may exhaust this card at the start of your turn during the action phase. Remove up to 4 of your ground forces from the game board and place them on one or more planets you control. So we've set up a game here. We are the Federation of Sol, and we've taken some planets and we got some infantry dispersed out. So we're at the beginning of our turn, perform an action, and maybe we decide tactically that we want to start moving towards the left side of the board here. But before we do that, we want to take the infantry we have on these two planets and transfer them over to this planet, right? So we can do that with transit diodes. Now, it's important to note here that transit diodes isn't in itself an action, so using this card won't end our turn. It's just something we do at the beginning of our turn during this timing window. However, once we use transit diodes, because of the wording, because the card says you may exhaust this card, well, then we won't be able to use it for the rest of the turn until status phase comes and all of our exhausted cards get refreshed. So we'll use it here, and then that's it for the rest of the turn. So let's see how transit diodes works. We're going to double click it, and we'll get this interface that pops up. And it's telling us to remove and relocate up to 4 infantry. So we got our home planet, and then we got the 4 planets that we've taken at some point in the game. So there's some restrictions, obviously, to this. We can't take 5 units and try to relocate 5. If we do that, then we're being told that we're exceeding the maximum limit of the technology card. We also can't try to take 2 infantry from a planet and only relocate 1. Then the app will tell us that the number of infantry removed from planets is not identical to the number of infantry placed on planets. The other thing we can't do is, because we have no planets on Jord, if we tried to take 1 from Jord and put 1 on Lazar, well then we're attempting to relocate more infantry than we have on Jord. We have none, right? So we can't do that. So that's nice that those restrictions are automated for us. Excuse me. So let's take 1 infantry from Lazar, 1 infantry from Sakulag, and move them both over to Tiba. So we'll navigate over to transit diodes. We want to take 1 infantry, not add 1 infantry, we want to take 1 infantry from Lazar, 1 infantry from Sakulag, and put them both onto Tiba. Trying to relocate this works. we're brought to the confirmation message, and if we confirm here, we get the confirmation. Checking the planets, we can see that our infantry no longer exists over on Lazar and Sakulag, and over at Tiba, we now have 3 infantry instead of 1. And notice how we're still at the perform an action step. If we try to use transit diodes again, we'll be told that the technology is exhausted. So that's transit diodes. Pretty simple. The next technology I'd like to look at is another cybernetics, and it's the integrated economy technology. So, integrated economy says, after you gain control of a planet, you may produce any number of units on that planet that have a combined cost equal to or less than that planet's resource value. So, originally, when we were about to implement this card, we weren't sure about the wording because it says that you can produce any number of units on that planet. So originally we thought that meant you can just produce infantry, which was kind of strange because for such an advanced tech, it seems kind of weak. After looking up some of the rules and going to some of the forums, we got the consensus that you can build ships as long as there's no enemy ships in the system. Then you can build ships, right? So we're going to go ahead and take some planets so we can see how to use this card. So let's go and take Kornik and Raskulian. So we'll activate that system. We'll pass on the abilities. We'll move our carrier we'll take all of the infantry, all 3. We'll commit the ground forces. And then we'll establish control. Okay, so in previous videos, at this point, we would get to the end your turn step. But now we see something new. In the turn prompt, the game is asking us to resolve an ability after gaining control of a planet. And that's because we hold the integrated economy card. So this is the point, the timing window in the game where you're going to want to use integrated economy. It's after you establish control of your planets. So let's see how to use this. We double click integrated economy, and it's going to bring us to the production screen. So first we're getting a prompt for Kornik. And you'll notice Kornik is the topmost planet in the system. Generally, that's how it's going to work. You're going to be asked to build units from top to bottom, just as you would for regular production that we saw in the introduction to the app. So let's say we're just building for Kornik right now. So Kornik only has 1 resource. That means we can only spend 1 resource to build here, right? So we can spend the 1 resource from Tiba. And what can we build for 1 resource? We can build 2 fighters. We can build 2 infantry. We can't build structures, right? Well, first I got to commit resources committed. If I try to build a PDS, it's not purchasable. Same thing with a space dock. If I even think about building a war sun, that's never possible. There's no planet that, well, the war sun isn't even researched. So, but if we try to build a flagship, there's no planet that has 8 resource value, right? Yeah. So with one resource, we can build, like I said, 2 infantry or 2 fighters or a destroyer. So maybe here we'll build the destroyer. So there it is. We'll confirm. Units and resources saved for Kornik. Proceed to make choices for Resculium. Okay, so everything has been reset. Currently no trade goods. Our planet is still exhausted. No units being produced. So we'll go on to Resculon. So this has a resource value of 2 here. So maybe here, I'll try to build, spend 2 trade goods, commit those, build 2 infantry, and 2 fighters. So we'll check that. And now we're going to be asked to confirm all our choices. So Kornik is going to produce 1 destroyer, Resculion will produce 2 infantry and 2 fighters. Now this is all legal, but if you did try to do something that's not allowed, you will get a prompt that tells you what you're doing wrong, and then you'll have to restart the process again. But let's just confirm this. And so there it is, Technology Plate, Integrated Economy by Alice. And if we go ahead and click on the system, we can see there is the destroyer we built, there's the 2 fighters, the 2 infantry will be on the planet, on Resculon. So we have 3 because we had 1 and we built 2, right? All right, great. So the other players are going to pass now. We're going to do that. And back to us. So we're still in the resolvability after gaining control of a planet. If we try again to use integrated economy, we'll be told we can't use it because we've already used it during this cycle of taking a planet, right? But unlike transit diodes, the next time we take a planet during this turn, we'll be able to use integrated economy again if we like, because this is not an exhaustible card. Nowhere on the card does it say exhaust, right? And we'll see that in a sec, because we're going to transition into the final technology that I want to show in this video. And this is probably a familiar one to most people, and it's fleet logistics. So, fleet logistics, we gain the possibility of performing 2 actions instead of 1 during our turn. To see how this works, first we got to get out of this ability phase, so we're going to pass. And we're brought to the end your turn prompt. Now normally here we would just pass, but because we have fleet logistics, this is the timing of the game where you want to use this technology card. So this is the reason why you need the end turn step in the app for cards like this. Okay, so instead of passing, we'll double click fleet logistics. And yes, we're sure. Okay, so there we go. The turn display is now telling us to perform another action. So that worked. Recall what I said about transit diodes and how it's an inexhaustible card. With transit diodes, we can use it at the beginning of our turn. However, if we try to, we can't now because it's exhausted. We have to wait till status phase for our technologies to become refreshed. However, on the other hand, if we were to take another planet, say we go to this system, so let's activate it. Let's pass solve abilities, move our ships, take 2 infantry, commit our ground forces, and establish control. Once again, we're brought to the resolve inability after gaining control of a planet. And that's because integrated economy is not exhaustible. Double click it, and we're brought back to this step, right? So you could, once again, construct some units. So let's try one trade good, commit, we'll build a destroyer, save those. Now for Raren has 0 resource value, so we actually can't build anything from this planet. So instead of committing resources, we'll commit resources, but we won't commit anything. And then we'll just click the OK and build the one destroyer. And clicking the system, we see it there. Other players will pass. And then we'll pass, and we're brought back to the end of our turn step. And just to take note here that fleet logistics cannot be played again. Right? We've already played fleet logistics during this turn. So the next turn, if we wanted, we can play it again. But that's it. Those are those 3 technologies: transit diodes, integrated economy, and fleet logistics. Some of the more intricate ones in terms of user interaction, well, not so much fleet logistics, but really just throwing it in there to show you at what point in the game, at what timing window you're going to be able to use it. I think in another video we'll do some more technologies, because there are still a few more out there. And not to mention that we haven't really gone through any of the faction-specific technologies quite yet. Just kind of going through the vanilla ones that every faction has access to. Biotic deck, I think these are all passive. We've already gone through Cybernetics deck. Well, we haven't done Graviton laser system. So maybe in the next video we can have that. We've done propulsion because the other propulsion cards are passive. Well, it's worth mentioning how gravity drive works, though. It is passive, but let's take a look here quickly. So it says after you activate a system, apply +1 to the move value of one of your ships during this tactical action. So if this is passive, right, you might be wondering, well, what's the ship, right? And the way it works is as long as you're only picking one ship that's exceeding its move value by 1, then your movement will go through. But if you do, well, for example, say you had 2 carriers here, right? And say you activated this system. Because we have gravity drive, we could take one carrier and get it there. And this destroyer, because it has a move value of 2, right? But if we tried to move both carriers, the game's going to tell us that one of our ships is exceeding its move value. So it is a passive card, but you still have to kind of think about it yourself when you're doing that. Okay. But just going back through the deck here, Warfare deck has these 2 are interesting. Actually, yeah, that's good because these are combat related, and so is Graviton Laser. So maybe we'll do a video with combat and show how these technologies work. The units don't have much besides Infantry 2. There isn't a user ability there, but this is pretty straightforward because the game will automatically take you to this step at some point where you have to just place your infantry back in your home system. But I think, yeah, for the next video or soonish, graviton laser system, duranium armor, and assault cannon will be good to go through. Alright, but for now, that's it for this video. So, yeah, it's good to have a reference for these technologies. I look forward to going over the other ones and then eventually the faction technologies as well. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.